Hi, I'm Pranamya and you're watching Pages of the Globe. So, if you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Pranamya and I read short stories and poems and I give you a very good deep analysis about them, and I tell you a little bit about the author and the historical context. And if you want more information, go ahead and check out the pinned video on my page. But without further ado, let's get on with the intro. So the story that I'm going to be reading today is A Telephonic Conversation by Mark Twain. Now, Mark Twain is actually a pen name for the author Samuel Langhorne Clemens, and he was born in 1835 and he died in 1910. Now, he is known, like I said, by the pen name Mark Twain, and he was an American writist, humorist, and essayist. He was praised as the greatest humorist of the United States has ever produced, with William Faulkner calling him the father of American literature. Now, Twain's novels are incredibly famous, and you've probably read them before or watched the film adaptation, but it includes The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and its sequel, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, with the latter often called the Great American Novel. He also wrote A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court and Pudd'nhead Wilson, and co-wrote The Gilded Age, A Tale of Today, with Charles Dudley Warner. Now, Twain was actually raised in Missouri, which later provided the setting for both Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, which are arguably his most famous pieces of literature. Twain also had a very strong, deep love for science and technology, and he developed a very close and lasting friendship with Nikola Tesla, and the two spent actually much time together in Tesla's laboratory. He actually patented 3 inventions, including an improvement in adjustable and detachable straps for garments to replace suspenders, and a history trivia game. Now, most commercially successful was actually a self-pasting scrapbook, which was a dried adhesive on the pages only needed to be moistened before use, and more than 25,000 actually were sold. Now, Twain earned a great amount of money from his writing and lectures, but he invested in ventures that lost most of it. He did end up filing for bankruptcy, but in time overcame his financial troubles with the help of many of his friends. He eventually paid all of his creditors in full, so even though his declaration of bankruptcy meant he was not required to do so. He was born shortly after an appearance. A fun fact is that Twain was actually born shortly after an appearance of Halley's Comet and predicted that his death would accompany it as well, dying a day after the comet was at its closest to Earth, which I just think is so cool. But like I said before, the story that I'm going to be reading today is A Telephonic Conversation by Mark Twain. It's a very funny, relatable story, and if you are someone who enjoys comedic stories, you will definitely love this one. Without further ado, let's get on with the video. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and also comment down below which short story or poem you would like me to read next. A Telephonic Conversation by Mark Twain. Consider that a conversation by telephone, when you are simply sitting by and not taking any part in that conversation, is one of the solemnest curiosities of modern life. Yesterday, I was writing a deep article on a sublime philosophical subject while such a conversation was going on in the room. I noticed that one can always write best when somebody is talking through a telephone close by. Well, the thing began this way. A member of our household came in and asked me to have our house put into communication with Mr. Bagley's downtown. I have observed in many cities that the female sex always shrink from calling up the central office themselves. I don't know why, but they do. So I touched the bell and this talk ensued. Central office, gruffly. Hello? I. Is it the central office? CO. Of course it is. What do you want? I. Will you switch me onto the Bagleys, please? CO. All right, just keep your ear to the telephone. Then I heard Klook, 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 klook. then a horrible gritting of teeth, and finally, a piping female voice. Yes, rising inflection. Did you wish to speak to me? Without answering, I handed the telephone to the applicant and sat down. Then followed that queerest of all queer things in the world, a conversation with only one end of it. You hear questions asked, you don't hear the answer. You hear invitations given, you hear no thanks in return. You have listening pauses of dead silence, followed by apparently irrelevant and unjustifiable exclamations of glad surprise or sorrow or dismay. You can't make head or tail of the talk because you never hear anything that the person at the other end of the wire says. Well, I heard the following remarkable series of observations, all from the one tongue, and all shouted, for you can't ever persuade the female sex to speak gently into a telephone. Yes, why, how did that happen? Pause. What did you say? Pause. Oh no, I don't think it was... Pause. No, oh no, I didn't mean that. I mean, put it in while it's still boiling, or just before it comes to a boil. Pause. What? Pause. I turned it over with a backstitch on the selvage edge. Pause. Yes, I like it that way too, but I think it's better to baste it on with Valenciennes or Baz-en-Bain, or something of that sort. It gives it such an air and attracts so much noise. Pause. It's 49th Deuteronomy, 64th to 97th inclusive. I think we ought all to read it often. Pause. Perhaps so. I generally use a hairpin. Pause. What did you say? Aside, children, do be quiet. Pause. Oh, B flat, dear me, I thought you said it was a cat. Pause. Since when? Pause. Why, I never heard of it. Pause. You astound me. It seems utterly impossible. Pause. Who did? Pause. Goodness gracious. Pause. Well, what is this world coming to? Was it right in church? Pause. And was her mother there? Pause. Why, Miss Bagley, I should have died of humiliation. What do they do? Long pause. I can't be perfectly sure because I haven't the notes by me, but I think it goes something like this. To-rolly lol lol lolly lol lol, oh tolly lolly 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 lee, I do. And then repeat, you know. Pause. Yes, I think it's very sweet. Very solemn and impressive. If you get the Adantino and Pianissimo right. Pause. Oh, gumdrops, but I never allow them to eat striped candy. And of course they can't till they get their teeth anyway. Pause. What? Pause. Oh, not in the least. Go right on. He's here writing. It doesn't bother him. Pause. Very well, I'll come if I can. Aside. Dear me, how it does tire a person's arm to hold this thing up so long. I wish she'd... Pause. Oh, no, not at all. I like to talk, but I'm afraid I'm keeping you from your affairs. Pause. Visitors. Pause. No, we never use butter on them. Pause. Yes, that is a very good way, but all the cookbooks say that they are very unhealthy when they are out this season, and he doesn't like them anyway, especially canned. Pause. Oh, I think that is too high for them. We have never paid over 50 cents a bunch. Pause. Must you go? Well, goodbye. Pause. Yes, I think so. Goodbye. Pause. 4 o'clock then. I'll be ready. Goodbye. Pause. Thank you ever so much. Goodbye. Pause. Oh, not at all. Just as fresh. Which? Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that. Goodbye. Hangs up the telephone and says, oh, it does tire a person's arms so. The end. Alright, so that was a telephonic conversation, which was written by Mark Twain. Now, what happens in the story? Well, it talks about a telephonic conversation that ensues between a woman and her friend, Miss Bagley, while the woman's husband passively listens to a one-sided conversation, writing an article on the philosophical subject in the meantime. Now, there's something very, almost relatable about the story, something that almost all of us can relate to at some level. Humans have this sort of innate tendency to attempt to fill in the blanks whichever way they can. I'm sure you could probably remember some homework back from your school and you were supposed to fill in the blanks, like the jog dumped blank the bridge, or name the president X, or the name of the president of X country is blank, or if X equals 2, then 2X equals blank. Now, if you take the earlier conversation and fill in the pauses, the result could be funny, your homemade version of Netflix for a lazy evening. The comments of the husband delivered in a typical deadbeat manner were funny. Subtle complaint about the woman's volume when talking on the phone. It might not be that your wife does it today with smartphones and all, but I can bet that you probably know an elderly female relative or two that would fit this description. In the closing story, we see them repeat goodbye just 4 to 5 different times. And it's just witnessing, as the husband witnesses all of this, he just comments about how, in his opinion, the female sex cannot, they can't abide abruptness. They can't just say, okay, goodbye, and then cut the call, which honestly, I have to say, I always hate, whenever I'm calling my friends or literally anyone, I always hate saying goodbye and then just ending it there. But, you kind of have to, right? You don't want to keep saying, okay, goodbye, right? So, even, with text conversations, I hate just ending it there. But I think the purpose of the story in this case was really just to be very relatable and just be sort of a funny, almost anecdote. And I think even though this story was written quite a bit of a time ago, I think it's interesting how we can still relate it to today. Yeah, obviously we still don't use telephones anymore. We have iPhones now. But I think the interesting part about this is just how such a simple interaction, such a simple thing, connects a lot of people across the world. And I think that's such an important aspect of the story that may not be as seen as much. When I think back to things I do every day, nowadays I've been trying to think about how other people may live their life. I almost always say, no one has ever had an original experience. Think of any embarrassing story that you may have, or maybe even a tragic event that is bound to happen to someone else in the world. And I think it's so interesting because I have told so many stories in my life, and someone, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, or one of my friends, almost everyone has had a similar experience. There's always someone else out there that has done or did the same thing that I have, whether it's had the same have the same critique of a story or a movie, or maybe have the same daydream, or have the same kind of just regular dream, or the way that we view numbers and days. For example, me personally, this may be a weird thing to say, but I feel like Tuesdays and Thursdays are odd numbers, and then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are even numbers. And whenever I say that, there's always people that will comment back and be like, yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, I never even thought that there would be someone out there in the world that would genuinely think the same way I do. But there's so many. And so that's why I always say we've never had an original experience. And reading this story just kind of confirmed that, because I can confidently say I'll hear my mom on the phone all the time. And obviously I can't hear whoever's on the other side of the phone. But the things that she'll say can be so they seem so out of pocket. So then it's playing Mad Libs, trying to figure out what the other person is saying, especially if you want the tea or the drama. But that is it for today. Remember to share, subscribe, and comment down below which short story you would like me to read next.